The Doctor. In the TARDIS. Next stop, everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS, ready to talk some Big Finish audios with my wonderful partner in time, wonderful friend, and guy who still gets to watch the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs instead of his Dallas Cowboys, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I am great, Charles. I have, first off, once again, this is 2021 is turning out to be a pretty good year. 2 weeks in a row, I've got to talk Doctor Who with you, so
yes.
that's an improvement. Yeah, I was talking to Chris, and I'm really cheering for the Browns, and then my backup on the AFC is the Bills because Cole Beasley, who was a Cowboy, moved to the Bills. So, they were like, oh, that'd be nice. But yes, my pick is Cleveland, New Orleans in the Super Bowl. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, I would be more than happy with that, especially having America's team, the Cleveland Browns,
yes,
in the Super Bowl. But I honestly don't expect us to get past the Kansas City Chiefs next week.
It will be very tough. But as Chris, and you guys all know Chris is my son, he's like, forget the Super Bowl. I just want to get to the NFC Championship game, right? Like, it's been so long.
Right.
Can we just get to an NFC? So I'm sure you're like, hey, we make it to an AFC Championship game. Woohoo! So.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
all right.
Before everybody starts panicking about whether this is Next Stop Football.
Yes.
So here at episode 214, believe it or not, we're going to be talking Out of Time, which is the first audio story from Big Finish Productions' new Doctor Who Out of Time series that was released on August 21st, 2020, written by Matt Fitton, directed by Nicholas Briggs. Yes, that Nicholas Briggs who does the voice of, the Daleks and the Cybermen and others for actual Doctor Who. Starring, of course, David Tennant as the 10th Doctor and as his companion, sort of, in this story, Tom Baker as the 4th Doctor. So this is a big multi-doctor story that Big Finish Audio is doing. And like I said, this is the first one of what was originally, I think, intended to be a standalone audio between David Tennant and Tom Baker. And then apparently, thanks to things like COVID or probably scheduling or whatnot, they decided, well, hey, we'll just make this a series and let David Tennant's 10th Doctor meet some other doctors as well. So we'll be waiting for those. The next one, a certain Peter Davison's 5th Doctor coming in 2021. So we'll have a little Time Crash reunion to talk about at a future date.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about the details of this one because, first off, spoilers, I loved it.
Yeah, I would hope so.
And there is a lot of fun little things to talk about that choices that the actors made and that the script and directors did. So, yeah, this is great, and I'm glad to know there's going to be others because just like what did Stephen Moffat talked about when you got your action figures, you always had the Dalek.
You mean like the action figures that are right behind me?
Yes. Yeah, the Dalek and the Cybermen teamed up, right, to play, and that's why he was glad to do it. We're in our little mind having our figures kind of talk about it, and so this is not fan fiction. This is actual, canon, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, so obviously I love this script by Matt Fitton. Very punchy script, a lot of great lines in this one. When we get to our favorite quotes of the episode, got a lot to talk about there. So,
Yeah.
But obviously the big selling point for this one is the most popular doctor, at least arguably most popular doctor of the classic era, meets the arguably most popular doctor of the modern era, in the form of Tom Baker meeting David Tennant in this one. So obviously this is a big deal, and since, the David Tennant audios get a lot of love here from our listeners, I thought, well, we have to talk about this one, and I'm really glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, one of the podcasts I listen to is We've Got This, which is where, the two hosts debate topics like, what is aisle seat or a window seat on an airplane, what is the best Thanksgiving side dish, and they had who is the best doctor, and they came down to
that could take a while.
Yeah, they did. They had a really great episode, and then they ended up, it was a tie. They said that Tom Baker for classic and David Tennant for modern, they could not go, if I remember correctly.
That's a cop-out.
And so I do think that with all love to Eccleston and Jody and, Davison, I think most people would vote for these two of the top two doctors.
I would say so, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Although, obviously I think depending on Matt Smith's, because, there's a lot more younger fans than there are older fans these days.
Yes.
So it's entirely possible, I think Matt Smith might be in that running somewhere.
I think you're absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my guess anyway.
Yeah,
all right.
I think so.
So, guest cast this time, we get the return, obviously, of Nicholas Briggs as the voice of the Daleks in this one. No surprise there, but always welcome because, hey, it just makes the Daleks sound more authentic, right?
It does, yes, absolutely.
And we get Claire Rushbrook returning to Doctor Who as, this time, the Abbess, and also the character Marna, the pilot that Jorah befriends a little bit in the story. She previously played the character of Ida Scott in The Impossible Planet / The Satan Pit from, David Tennant's era.
Okay.
So she was a natural choice for this one. She also played the sister of 8th Doctor audio companion Liv Chenka. She played Tula Chenka in the 8th Doctor Big Finish audio Escape from Kaldor. And she was also in the recent movie Spider-Man Far From Home, believe it or not.
Nice.
So that's a very interesting assortment I thought I'd mention. Catherine Drysdale plays Jorah, or as we know her in the story, Private Jorah. She played the character Bliss in the rather dubious episode Love and Monsters from also the David Tennant era. So we got a couple of David Tennant era vets returning for this one. And recently she's appeared, and I don't know if you've watched this. I know my wife Lori has. She appeared as Genevieve Delacroix in the new Netflix series Bridgerton.
I have not watched that yet. It is on my list of things. I confess I went through a third viewing of Ted Lasso.
Ah. So Lori recommends it, by the way. She really enjoyed it. She burned through it really quick.
Good.
We also had Nicholas Asbury as Captain Zena, or someone pretending to be Captain Zena, as it turns out. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that. And he also played Keval in the story. He turned up in a Peter Capaldi era story. He played Etuan in the Zygon Inversion, the second part of the Zygon Invasion. He was also the character Chairman Bert Falco in the 7th Doctor Big Finish audio, the Silurian Candidate. And he was also in some notable TV appearances, including The Alienist, Angel of Darkness, the sequel to The Alienist that was on TNT, and which I thought rather good. And he was also in the Sherlock episode, The Sign of Three.
Okay.
And then lastly, we had an actor named Glenn McCready as one of the pilgrims that served under Captain Zena.
Good.
So that's our guest cast this time. Thankfully, a lot with these Big Finish audios, and especially since you have two doctors, you kind of go skimpy on the rest of the cast because you want to spend most of your time with the two doctors if you've got them in the same recording booth, right?
I know we have 3 categories, but it's like...
Or maybe not the same one since it's COVID, but yeah.
Yeah, but our 3 categories, I think we're going to do 80, 10, 10.
Yeah, probably. I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, this story is all about the two doctors.
Absolutely, yes.
And not confusing that with the Two Doctors story from Colin Baker's era. Just putting that out there. Okay, so trivia before we get into our three topics. Just have a couple of things. The Fourth Doctor mentions that he had recently been elected Lord President in the Citadel on Gallifrey in the story, which is a reference to the story The Deadly Assassin, one of my personal favorites, written by Robert Holmes, where it was a Fourth Doctor solo story where the Fourth Doctor goes to Gallifrey to prevent the assassination of the Lord President, ends up becoming Lord President himself, and oh hey, the Master's involved. So
Okay.
no big deal
Yeah.
there. Great story. The 10th Doctor, meanwhile, appears to be, as kind of really emphasized toward the end of this story, something I definitely want to talk about, shortly after the Waters of Mars. Sometime between the Waters of Mars and the End of Time, his final story.
That's what I got the
So
feeling.
we kind of get the Time Lord victorious Doctor in this story.
Yes, there is a little bit of that. I agree.
Yeah, so, and it's something that doesn't quite go over very well with the Fourth Doctor, as it turns out. So that's something I definitely want to talk about. Three topics, like Jesse said. So topic number one, well, hey, let's start right off the bat. We got to talk our two Doctors, the Fourth and 10th Doctors, as they encounter one another in the Cathedral of Contemplation, which is a very interesting setting. So Jesse, and I know you said you love this audio, so what are your initial thoughts of these two preeminent doctors finally meeting at long last?
So I ended up listening to this twice, and I could actually see me going back and listening to it again.
Yeah.
You know,
it's that
one
good,
of the,
yes.
Yeah, one of the things that I often tell you when we're doing an audio drama is, you know, it's just too hard to try to take notes on dialogue, and so I won't have many quotes. Not the case this one. In fact, I stopped myself at just 3. I'm like, okay, because basically I could write the whole script.
Yeah.
First off,
I did 7.
You know, good for you. The
Yeah.
cathedral is a great concept.
Yeah.
It is, kind of like the
It's kind of
Guardian
made for
the
TV, isn't it?
Yes, the Guardian of the Edge of Forever, right? Like
Yes.
This is something you could go back to over and over again.
Just the Guardian of Forever, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So where the idea that this is kind of a safe haven and where the Doctor can go and kind of relax. And so it gives you a very realistic reason on why our two doctors are meeting.
Yeah.
You know.
Even though they're supposed to be kept separate.
Yes, exactly.
But thanks especially to the 10th Doctor kind of sticking his nose in where it doesn't belong.
Yes.
They end up encountering one another, crossing their timelines.
And there is the beauty of kind of like the Husbands of River song, right, where the Doctor realizes River doesn't know who he is and has a little fun with it.
Right.
You know, the 10th Doctor is having a little fun with the 4th Doctor not knowing, and then there is this one point where he says, I think he knows he knows that I know
that he knows
or something.
Yeah. And he's grinning about it. You know, he's kind of excited by the idea.
Yeah, and so there is some beautiful dialogue before they recognize that each other, and then there's some more wonderful chemistry when they do realize each other. They're both arrogant in their own way.
Right.
They're both charming in their own way. There is nothing negative to say about their interactions. How about you, Charles?
Well, you know, obviously there's a very easy comparison is something that we saw between these doctors in Time Crash, and also when David Tennant returned for the Day of the Doctor.
Yes.
So we've seen him interacting with other doctors. So the question, obviously, in this audio is, well, how does he interact with the 4th Doctor? And it turns out pretty damn well, in my opinion.
I agree.
He's, you know, they play off each other really well. The 10th, obviously, being the oldest Doctor. Maybe not physically, but certainly chronologically.
Yes.
And this is something that kind of is kind of a common trait among the oldest of the Doctors in these multi-Doctor stories, is that they always seem to have to try to keep secret about, you know, the younger Doctor's future.
Yes.
So for obvious reasons, not trying to, alter temporal events, not alter the Doctor's own timeline by revealing things from his future.
Yeah.
And so the 10th Doctor goes to considerable lengths trying to keep things secret. He starts using a sonic screwdriver, and the 4th Doctor's kind of like, wait a second, what's that? And he talks about, it's like a sonic scientific device, or
yes.
like instrument. That's what he says. He says it's a sonic scientific instrument, which, if you kind of remember, that was what the War Doctor said. They're not water pistols; they're scientific instruments.
Yes.
So essentially, that was, I think, the 10th Doctor using that.
And there's this great. You brought this up. Because of Time Crash was for charity.
Yeah.
There is a fanboyish part of that because and in real life, Tennant did love Davison's Doctor, right?
Yeah.
So they built that in there.
Not to mention the fact that he became his son-in-law. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
There is a.
Do you think there's a fanboyish?
I do not
here?
in this one. I do not. That's what I mean. I'm not criticizing it. I'm complimenting it.
Yeah.
There is a deference, respect
yeah.
to the younger Doctor, but actually older Doctor, the
yes.
previous incarnation.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of his elder, even though he's not his elder, right?
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
that in that timey-wimey.
He's respecting, the Doctor who came before.
Yes, and I think he plays that very well with a little bit of impishness.
I totally agree with that, by the way.
Yeah, a little bit of impishness, a little bit of joy, and
reverence. Yeah.
Yes, reverence there is, and it works. It works even though because he's not truly, it is the same way you would respect someone who had been in your position before, like someone who'd been has done your role before and you respect it. I loved it, and I loved their push and pull, like, well, I should go. No, you should go. Or
right.
No, you shouldn't go. I should go. No. And then I'd like your thoughts on this, Charles, when the 10th Doctor is going, I should remember this. Oh, wait. Oh, now it is. And it's almost
yes.
like as time changes, it waves through.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden it comes through
There's ripples of time.
Yes. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So obviously, and it's something that kind of is actually factors into the plot a little bit because the 4th Doctor learns that, because he's captured by the Daleks and because Zena betrays him, that, it's something we're obviously we'll talk about here in a minute when we get to Zena, is that he finds out that Zena was replaced by the Daleks. The original Zena was killed. So therefore he knows that Jorah's father is dead. And as you say, there are these temporal ripples because once the 4th Doctor learns it, it cascades through time, through the Doctor's timeline until it finally reaches the 10th. And the 10th is like, oh, Jorah, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
So, which obviously gives David Tennant another opportunity to use his famous apologetic catchphrase.
Yes. There also is that great moment when they do rock, paper, scissors.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, my rock feature, you were going to do.
Yes.
Like the
10th Doctor was anticipating the Fourth's reaction.
Yes.
And the 4th Doctor kind of counters back with, well, maybe there's something wrong with your memory.
Yes, and I love that. You are kind of over there. And then later when they talk about, I won this fair and square, I don't know about that. There is
well, one of the great charms about multi-Doctor stories
Yes.
is the doctors bickering with one another.
Right.
Because it's kind of the old adage, like, that you wouldn't get along. Like, if you were locked in a room with yourself, you wouldn't get along with yourself.
Exactly. Yes.
So the doctor, because of who he is and the whole timey-wiminess of that in the way the show is structured, is the living embodiment of this. He
Yeah.
doesn't get along with himself at all times. Sometimes he does. And for the
Yes.
most part, he does get along with himself in this episode.
Yes, he does.
But, like you said, these are both two arrogant doctors. The fourth doctor calls out 10 for being extremely arrogant.
Yes.
And that really becomes evident because the 10th Doctor, like we talked about, this is him at his Time Lord victorious stage. This very notorious moment in the 10th Doctor's story that, I think a lot of 10th Doctor fans would rather forget because their Doctor is not exactly the shining hero in this moment in his life.
But I love the complexity of that, and I applaud that the writers and Tennant were able to go there.
Yeah.
It
is a very risky thing. It was a risky thing, I should say.
And the idea that we say over and over again, you should not travel alone.
Right.
Amy told Matt Smith's doctor, you shouldn't travel alone.
And the fourth doctor tells 10 this.
Yes, he does, because he's not traveling alone, and other people had told the 10th Doctor that you shouldn't travel alone, and he was traveling alone, and it is not good for the Doctor not to have a non-Gallifreyan companion. I won't say a human companion because you don't necessarily have to be human, but it is someone who is outside that Time Lord scope. And I think that was a really great, they brought it out. I also love the 10th saying, well, you're going to settle down with a nice Time Lord lady and have a dog,
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a little bit off because after parting ways with the 10th Doctor, the 4th Doctor, his next companion is Leela.
Right.
So he doesn't get to Romana until after Leela leaves.
Right.
So, but 10 does kind of give him a little heads up in that regard.
Yes.
And, they make this comment about like, well, I shouldn't be doing this, but the 4th Doctor points out we've never been one for following the rules.
Yes, and they talk about that. At one point, he says, "Do you want to go with me?"
Yeah.
And they're
yes.
like, "Boy, that would break the rules, right?"
Yes, it would.
And you get.
Can you imagine the Doctor becoming the companion of the Doctor?
Yes. And you get just the slightest hint that they're both tempted. Because, the Doctor is lonely.
Right.
But he knows that as much as, because you don't get along well with yourself, for long periods.
Yeah.
So that was a really lovely little line to think about that. And I love, as you said, we don't always follow the rules, and the acknowledgement of that. Really, really great interactions.
Yeah. So what did you... we kind of touched on this a little bit. So what did you make of the 4th Doctor's reaction to the 10th Doctor, essentially saying that, that he shouldn't need stopping? When it comes to, like the 4th Doctor, knows when to stop himself from going too far. But the 10th doesn't at this point. He's the Time Lord victorious. And so, this is something that the 4th Doctor is just horrified by.
I like that a lot. First off, once again, I thought that was really an interesting time to place the meeting where neither had a companion.
Yeah.
I also love the idea of the younger / older Doctor, the 4th Doctor, actually, calling the 10th Doctor out and going, no, you know better than this. This is not what we do.
Right.
This is not who you are, because it's not who I am, and you and I are the same. So I liked that a lot. I love that the 10th Doctor is at this point right now, and our 4th Doctor is actually a little bit, I think appalled is too strong of a word, but he is like, no, this isn't who we are, and you know better than that. I like that scene a lot.
Yeah, the 4th Doctor has this ability to get really outraged too, and he turns some of that on his future self.
Yes, he does.
But I agree. I mean, I think the decision to put the 10th Doctor at this stage, the Time Lord Victoria stage, it created a really interesting dynamic between these two Doctors.
Yes.
They really sell it, and it gives them something really good to chew on, even for a very brief outing together.
Yeah, I mean, this, as you mentioned in last episode, this was less than 50 minutes.
Yeah, it's like it's like 60 minutes. Yeah, somewhere total.
I mean,
but,
and it moves very quickly. It is not a very complex story, but it gives a lot of, this would be a character episode, right?
Yes.
Like there are plot episodes, there are adventure episodes. This is basically a character episode. Like you could, and obviously because there's radio play,
there's enough plot to drive things forward.
Yeah, but if you, go ahead, Charles.
No, I was just going to say, and there are some subplots.
Yes.
But primarily, yeah, this is just a showcase for Tennant and Tom Baker.
Yeah, like if we just recently, the cast of The West Wing came back and did a staged reading of an episode, right, without limited sets. I would love to film them doing a stage reading of this. That it just would be great to see them interaction. Yeah. So, yeah.
It would, obviously it would be nice if Tom Baker was a little younger and was still able to get around and us not being in a global pandemic right now.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
But maybe some other Doctors could recreate this.
Yeah.
At some point at conventions, if we ever end up doing conventions again.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Is like this would be absolutely, how sometimes they'll have at a convention, there'll be a special thing for charity that you can do, and I would buy the ticket for this.
Well, like people hand the actors scripts and say, hey, what would it be like if your Doctor did this scene?
Yes.
So that could be really interesting with some different Doctors, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So everybody keep on that. Right. Let's see. So, anything else really about the 10th and 4th Doctors? I know that, they end up, they do work together, but primarily they end up separated for a good portion of the story as well.
Yeah, but, in one of my quotes, I love the fact that the 4th Doctor, before he figures out who John, what he didn't use Smith, he used
Tyler.
Yeah, John
Tyler. As in Rose Tyler. Right? Yeah, he used Rose Tyler.
Broke up for a little bit.
Yeah, yes, you did.
Yeah, John Tyler. Yes, perfect. Yes, we did.
But yes, John Tyler, he used, obviously after Rose Tyler.
Yes. But he was saying how clever he was. He was like, he could tell that. So I think that was really nice that he recognized it. But no, I don't have anything else to add about the Doctors.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's move on. Let's talk about topic number 2. And this is kind of like our miscellaneous section. So let's talk about Private Jorah and Captain Zena, or at least the thing that pretends to be Captain Zena.
Yeah.
And we can definitely want to talk about that. We could throw in Marna, the ship's pilot that she encounters for a little bit if we want. We could talk about the Abbess, Keval, and we could talk about the Cathedral of Contemplation here as well, because I thought it was a really interesting setting. And I liked the explanation that the Abbess was essentially symbiotically linked with the cathedral, so that when the Daleks end up killing her, it causes the cathedral to start crumbling. So do you want to talk about Jorah and Zena, or do you want to talk about the cathedral, or what do you want to talk about?
I'll start with the cathedral, and then
Okay.
we'll move on. One of the things that I liked about the cathedral is kind of, and I'm not a huge John Wick fan. You know, I watched the films once or something, but the idea that you go into this, great films, sort of just like where you go into the sanctuary, right? Where everyone has to bring their weapons. The hotels, right?
Right.
This has felt like that. Like, okay, there are rules in this cathedral.
It's a safe space, but there are rules, yes.
Yeah, and they look at, like, okay, doctor, you're known to break the rules. Oh, no, I'm not going to do this. And even when she leaves, he even says, well, what are a few rules? And so I love that concept that you could go, and she's like, I don't want you using us to, just search through time to plan a party or whatever. I would love another series of episodes in this setting and kind of know more about this. It was a really fun space.
One of the things I thought was interesting, they kind of get the impression that I got was that the Doctor had visited the cathedral before, and not just as the Fourth Doctor. It seemed like she was, the Abbess was aware of the 10th incarnation as well.
It feels like. And we're
like maybe she's met several of them over time.
Yeah, I was gonna, we are truly, kind of.
I think it's a setting worth exploring.
But I do think it's like this is, you could say, where this is a known shore leave planet. If we're going to mix Star Trek in there, right?
Okay.
Like this is a place where time.
We mix everything else. Why not? Yeah, go for it.
Where Time Lords or Time Ladies go to rest.
Yes.
That it's a safe place. That it is where you kind of
to kind of just think about
recharge.
Things.
Yes.
It's almost the way I view it is like it's this timey-wimey Zen garden.
Yes, exactly.
For you to go in there and just kind of like it's right there in the name, Cathedral of Contemplation. You're there to contemplate things. You're there to think about things. And and obviously with the Time Lord victorious, he's at a very precarious stage. And presumably the Fourth Doctor was as well, because he had just left Gallifrey, went through the whole business of, the being named Lord President of Gallifrey, the Master attacking right there. And so it was a pretty big ordeal that he's coming out of as well. Now, the Fourth Doctor is just there like, oh, hey, I'm just going to kind of chill, and I'm going to paint some frescoes. And I've got this nice young girl named Jorah helping me out. She's cleaning my brushes for me.
That's what she said. No. Well, you could actually see the 13th Doctor, if she had not been picked up and taken to jail.
Yeah, space jail.
She may have gone to here after finding out everything she had found out.
That's a good idea. So,
because she's because that's built in Gallifreyan DNA, explains maybe why, we talked about last episode, we had a speculation, maybe she didn't want to break out of jail because she was still dealing with her thoughts and all this stuff. So maybe this was a low rent versus cathedral contemplation. I can't talk.
Contemplation,
Yeah, thank you. Right.
You're welcome.
So I could see that this would when things happen like that.
So what you're saying is that if as long as she figured, well, I'm in space jail anyway, I might as well use the time to contemplate, since I would normally go to the Cathedral of Contemplation.
Yeah, that's my theory.
Yeah. And, considering, farther into the Doctor's timeline, maybe there wasn't a Cathedral of Contemplation for the 13th Doctor to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. There could be. Yeah.
So, I thought it was a really interesting concept, this place outside of time. And that apparently, Anybody could visit from different time periods and whatnot, but because of the nature of the thing, there were these dimensional barriers. And the fun really hits, obviously, when those barriers start to fall.
Right.
Initially because, well, hey, the 10th Doctor did something he shouldn't. So,
Yes.
10! Shakes
Yes,
fist.
you almost could make the argument, right, that
Time
the
Lord
fifth Doctor,
Notorious,
yes,
apparently, yes.
like the fifth Doctor after Adric died, right? Maybe
Yeah.
he went and spent time and then came right back so that his other
Right.
companions didn't notice he was gone.
Right.
So anyway, I love the concept and I think it's great.
I'd
And
like to see it
made
introduced in the TV show.
Yes, I would too. I think that would be really good. Because, you got a little bit of that when you saw Missy's TARDIS. You almost got, like in the early scenes, we saw the gardens
Yeah.
and everything. So that could have been something like that.
Yeah. Or at least, it looks something a little similar, at least.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a really really interesting idea. I'm kind of really fascinated with this, and I would love to see it again. Even in audio form, hear it again.
I do too.
All right, let's talk about Jorah and Xena a little bit. So,
Okay.
Jorah, as we talked about, was helping out the Fourth Doctor with his painting, and turns out though, and this is something that's kind of noticed by the 10th Doctor, she's hiding something. And the 10th Doctor's, made this comment to the 4th, is like, well, you didn't pick up on this? She's obviously hiding something. And the 4th eventually agrees with his future self about this. Turns out that Jorah was forced to be a part of what is known as the Second Dalek War, which was this war against the Daleks. And something that was introduced in the TV show. So the backdrop for the story is the Second Dalek War. It was something that was introduced in the John Pertwee era stories, Frontier in Space and Planet of the Daleks. And so here, we find out that Jorah, she's horrified by war. She's trying to escape it. She sees herself as a bit of a coward. And her father, at least the thing presenting itself to be her father, Captain Xena, has been hunting, looking for her to bring her back to the war. And so she's on the run, and probably, little echoes possibly of the Doctor. And, being on Gallifrey, being on the run from his own people a little bit here. So the Doctor is very sympathetic once the truth comes out. One of the doctors, I think it was the 10th Doctor, tries to talk to Xena and say, look, it's cool that she wants to be by herself. She doesn't have to be with you. And Xena, is kind of insistent about it. Like, look, she needs to be there. The Daleks are this very big menace that needs to be fought. And interestingly, that kind of sets up things because Xena, as it's revealed, isn't actually Xena after all. He's a Dalek duplicate that was created after the real Xena was killed by the Daleks, and is essentially an infiltrator into the Resistance against the Daleks.
Yeah.
So what did you make of that revelation, for one?
So I did not. It was, I guess, because we had just had somebody taken over by a Dalek. I was okay. It was revealed. The thing of the story.
Did it surprise you?
It did, but kind of.
Okay.
Like I said,
you just rolled with it.
Yeah, I rolled with it. The biggest point I had is the idea of often when you portray someone doesn't want to be part of a certain part of society,
Yeah.
it's because they're not good at it, or they have another calling. And then later you see she's actually pretty good at military. It's just not what she wants to do.
Yes.
I thought that was a kind of nice little twist and enjoyable. I do kind of
she's a good bit of a leader, at least.
Yeah, she is a very good leader. And I and I am a little surprised, and not in real world, I understand why she doesn't go with the doctor, right? Because she, he didn't have that companion.
Yeah.
But in this world, I'm a little surprised she didn't want to go with him. Yeah. I think she would have been a good companion
because the fourth doctor, the fourth doctor does invite her, but she turns him down.
Right.
So do you agree with her decision, or would you have liked to have seen?
I would have liked
her
to see
continue?
her. Yeah, I understand why she chose that decision.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have liked to seen her.
You thought she had potential?
I think she had a lot of potential. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I kind of thought that's where they were headed.
Yeah,
with
I
this
did
story,
too.
But again, they kind of surprised you a little bit, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, that was very interesting. I felt, you feel bad because Jorah, she thinks her father is, first she's angry at her father because he's trying to drag her back to the war that she doesn't want to be in.
Right.
And then the truth comes out that, well, hey, her father's actually been dead all along.
Yeah.
And she's trying to come to terms with that. She gets over it pretty quickly, interestingly, but because of circumstances, obviously. But I thought it was interesting.
Yeah,
and,
I did too.
Yeah.
Now, who was the pilot? What was
Marna? So Marna was apparently this this pilot who was flying people off world until the fighting came, and somehow she ended up, finding the Cathedral of Contemplation.
Yes,
and was one of the people inside.
Mm-hmm.
So
I liked her little monologue about there's always going to be people that need to have them to be flown places,
right?
To be traveled.
I kind of thought that Jorah was also going to maybe go off with Marna.
So did I. I actually thought there was a little bit of. I thought that was actually a pretty interesting character that we didn't do a lot with, and I would have liked to see more of her. She was. I loved her. The passion about flying and her sharing that kind of belief of what she loved to do was nice.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because, again, we had Claire Rushbrook playing that part, and she was the kind of the captain of that starship in the Impossible Planet.
Yes.
So I kind of got echoes of that a little bit with her.
I think so. I think she could have been like, okay, this was the captain earlier. Like I'm playing this the way that character would have been earlier in her life. Yes.
It felt a little similar to me.
Yeah, right. I absolutely agree.
Okay. All right. Anything else about these characters?
No, I'm good. I thought it was, as we said, majority of it was our two main cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's I'm good.
Okay, cool. All right. Third and final topic this time. Well, hey, we got to talk about our big bads, right? So let's talk the Supreme Dalek, or Dalek Supreme, take your pick, and the Daleks.
Yes.
Because that was a kind of a fun little nod because, sometimes in the TV show they would refer to the head Dalek as the Supreme Dalek, or sometimes they refer to him as the Dalek Supreme. But the Dalek Supreme kind of sounds like a sandwich you would get at McDonald's.
Yeah, they kind of call that out, right? Okay,
yeah.
What do you want to be called?
Right.
And that was kind of fun.
That was a nice little in-joke for fans, I think.
And I did like when they go to the Fourth Doctor. You've said you fought these. I have, but you aren't a soldier.
Yeah, Zen asked him about that.
Yeah, and he's like, well, sometimes it ends up blowing up. Just like this. Like,
he's like, I'm there, and things just kind of get taken care of when I'm there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of tries to downplay it a little bit. I thought that was interesting.
He does.
So the Daleks, as it turns out, their big plan, because the Daleks always have a plan, right? So their plan in this one is to get a hold of the Cathedral of Contemplation, take control of it so that they can direct, the doors that can go anywhere to essentially pick whatever targets they want and launch instant invasions from. So essentially it's like, okay, we've got this, like almost like a wheel that goes through time, and wherever we stop it, we can just like launch our forces from inside and attack them without any warning whatsoever, like a big surprise attack. And,
Right.
and their main goal is to attack because they're in the middle of this war with Earth and the Thals and other people, this alliance. They want to attack Earth's Central Command. So, as plans go, it's not a bad plan for this time.
No, it isn't.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
More than a lot of their plans did.
Yes. And it reminds me of like, okay, well,
because it could be weaponized, and essentially what they want to do is weaponize the cathedral.
Yeah, one of the shows that I ended up binging during this past year was The Man in the High Castle. I ended up going through all seasons, right? And that's a similar concept, right?
That alternate Earth,
that can go to other Earths, and they're like the Nazis are going to talk about using that for invasions. And so it was very appropriate because, as we talked about last episode, the Daleks are transparently similar to the Nazis, right? That's everyone has said that. So the idea that taking this thing of peace and beauty and using it as kind of their own personal
launch pad,
or TARDIS almost.
No,
right?
I would say a beachhead.
Yes, that you can go and just attack anywhere was a decent plan. And if it wasn't for those darn doctors, they might have got away with it.
Those pesky doctors. Yeah.
Yes.
So, so the Daleks, but the part of their downfall in this one, because obviously they have to have a downfall, right? Part of the downfall is that pretty early on after they arrive, they kill the Abbess. And as we talked about, the Abbess is symbiotically linked with the cathedral. So, therefore, the cathedral doesn't quite do what it's supposed to because, well, hey, you killed the Abbess, you idiots. And the doctor, the fourth doctor, is like, yeah, you're idiots because you killed her. And not just, I'm angry at you because you killed her, but also because, well, it's not going to work with her dead. So they come up with this backup plan, and their backup plan is, well, hey, we've got the doctor. Let's plug him into the machine. Let's connect him up and let him direct it, drive this crazy bus.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't also go to plan, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's not a bad plan, right? Like, okay, we should be able to do this. And I love the idea, and we've already talked a little bit about this, the fourth and the 10th Doctor bickering about who's going to go take the chance. And
because they're both the big heroic doctors, right?
Yes. And then,
so it's like, no, I'm going to go face the Daleks. No, I'm going to face the Daleks.
Do you know how often I face the doctors? Well, do you know how many times I face the doctor? And then the whole idea, well, like, yeah, but if you go and get yourself killed, then
what happens to me?
Yeah, to me, yes, which is always kind of very timey-wimey.
Yeah, and the fourth Doctor's like, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but it should be really interesting.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
so the Daleks hook up the fourth Doctor to their little machine, and it doesn't quite work. And essentially, they tell the fourth Doctor, well, you're not mentally strong enough for this to make this work. And the fourth Doctor's kind of insulted. He's like, that's the first time I've ever been called that.
Yeah, exactly. I would be insulted too. Like, what?
Yeah.
Get out of my
remember,
way. Let me show you how
remember
I do
how you're
this.
talking to? Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So your mental power is insufficient. That's what they say.
Yeah.
So essentially what happens is, the doctor I think the fourth doctor kind of realizes, well, maybe my mental power alone couldn't power this, but two doctors probably could have. Thankfully, my future self isn't stupid enough to show up.
Yeah.
So of course he shows up
Exactly. Yes.
and confronts them, but they make a deal and they say, okay, we'll like. The 10th Doctor says, okay, I volunteer to be hooked up to this machine along with my other self, but we need to do a trial run first. And so this is essentially his plan to save all the innocents, all the people that have been trapped inside the cathedral. So he says, okay, we're going to do this test drive, and they establish a stable connection, and they direct it to this like beach on this other alien planet or whatever. So, and then Jorah and Keval, they get everybody out to safety. But so after they confirm this test is successful, the Daleks are like, okay, deal's a deal. We did your test. Now, directed toward Earth Central Command, like we want. And this is where the 10th Doctor finds a little loophole.
Yes.
So he directs the cathedral, the door of the cathedral to Earth to open up there. But the Daleks did not specify which time.
They did not.
And where do they send the Daleks? Oh, just, the year 5.5 Apple/26, far, 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 far into the future. Like, oh, hey, the exact time that we saw in the Christopher Eccleston era story, The End of the World.
Yes.
Where the Earth gets roasted by the sun-going supernova and consuming the Earth in a giant fireball. So, suckers.
Yeah.
What did you make of that plan?
I love that plan. I loved how the fourth Doctor was like not sure of the plan, and the 10th Doctor like, trust me. But of course you can't. Everything. It was a nice twist, and I immediately when they talked the end, I went, oh look, they're kind of doing a little nod to an Eccleston era. That was cool. That was really nice.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, and it made sense because, hey, 10th Doctor obviously comes after Eccleston's era, so he knew about that.
Absolutely.
So I thought it was very interesting and pretty clever. Like I said, I really like this script a lot. Now the problem is that they think the cathedrals start crumbling, everybody else has gotten out. Jorah, the fourth Doctor takes Jorah's hand, they get out, but the 10th Doctor has to hold off the Supreme Dalek. Because, well, it's a Supreme Dalek. He can't go that easily, right? So in order to keep him from escaping the collapsing cathedral, the 10th Doctor stays behind. So the fourth Doctor has to do this little rescue. So essentially the fourth Doctor saves the day by synchronizing his sonic screwdriver with the 10th's sonic screwdriver. And somehow that allows the 10th Doctor to escape, but also trap the Supreme Dalek inside. And then everything collapses, problem solved, the end, essentially.
Absolutely.
So the threat's taken care of. The Doctor, the fourth Doctor makes a comment. This is where we talked about, he asked the 10th Doctor to give him a hint of his future. And they kind of part ways. But the fourth Doctor, he heads off to his destiny to meet Leela in the face of evil. And the 10th Doctor, meanwhile, still putting off meeting his destiny in the end of time. He's like, oh, there's always time for one more party.
Yeah, and he lynches that, and you could, and I know that is one of your concerns about the 10th Doctor and the way they wrote that.
Yeah.
That like, just go ahead and move. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't character. I get it.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's kind of what needed to happen chronologically.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So I get why they did it, but it's just it kind of makes the ending almost a little bit bittersweet, doesn't it?
Yes, it does a little bit. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did though like the fact that the 10th Doctor told the 4th Doctor that he went to Sarah Jane's wedding.
Yeah, and then
they kind of talk about like, there's this being that was almost destroyed all of reality, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it was a nice little nod to the Sarah Jane adventures as well.
It was, and also that the connection that he had met her and talked about it. So yeah, I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, I like that connection to the wedding of Sarah Jane Smith, definitely.
Yes.
All right. Anything else about the story that we missed?
I can't think of anything. It was good. I was very happy with it.
Okay, yeah. All right. Favorite quotes. You said you got a bunch.
I have
Let's
three.
Hear yours. Let's hear yours.
So I'll see how many of my three
made my list
is too.
Okay.
So the first one is, you do have a say. You just have to wait till you're me to say it.
Yeah.
Right? That was the 10th Doctor, like, talking about it. And then the 4th Doctor, I think you're hiding your light under a bushel. And I wish I could do a Tennant. I don't even own a bushel. Was good. And then this is the one I'm sure you've got, where the 10th Doctor is watching the 4th Doctor come in. And he goes, I forgot I'm so good at this sort of things. All scarf and sideburns. Nobody walks through a door like him.
Yep.
And this episode did not do a lot of fanboy moments.
Yeah.
But that was a beautiful fanboy of saying, come and gone. The Doctor, in a lot of people's eyes, is the 4th Doctor.
Well, it's kind of reminded me that line where he's like, look, he's coming back, all scoff and sideburns. That kind of reminded me of Tennant when he was in Time Crash with Peter Davison.
Yes.
And he's going like, look at you all crickety cricket with your,
yes,
and a decorative vegetable, that whole thing. Yeah. So I think it was that kind of a moment, only with the 4th Doctor.
And I loved it.
All scarf and sideburns. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? You got some for me?
Yeah. I've got you took a couple of mine, but that's all right. I got plenty more. Don't worry. I like the Abbess talking with the 10th Doctor going, usually you visit when you're in trouble. And the 10th Doctor replies, me? No, you're must be thinking of someone else. And the Abbess replies, I am, and all of them are you.
That was a great line. I love that line. Yes, absolutely.
That was great. I thought that was good. Obviously, the 4th Doctor and the 10th Doctor, a lot of great lines from theirs. 4th Doctor says, when talking about like seeing the 10th Doctor's sonic screwdriver, says, what have you got there? And the 10th Doctor replies, sonic, scientific instrument. I really should find a way back. And the 4th Doctor replies, is that what broke it? Perhaps I should take a look at the setting on that instrument. And the 10th Doctor replies, oh, no, best not. Specialized bit of kit. Wouldn't want it in the wrong hands, And the 4th Doctor says to that, I'm very much the right hands.
Very good. That's a good one.
I thought that was good. And let's see, the Captain Zen and the 4th Doctor saying, Captain Zen says, what's the plan of attack? What's your strategy? And the 4th Doctor replies, the trouble with having a strategy, it's one more thing to go wrong.
Yes.
Thought that was good.
Like that. Yes.
And lastly, I should do this. The 4th Doctor and the 10th Doctor, when they're doing the scissors thing. So the 4th Doctor says, look, you're clearly a helpful sort of fellow, but I do this kind of thing all the time. The 10th Doctor replies, "So do I." The 4th Doctor says, "I've beaten Daleks before." 10th Doctor says, "So have I. Obviously, more times than you." The 4th says, "Then let me add to my tally. Scissors, paper, stone." 10th Doctor says, "Fair enough. On 3, 1, 2, 3. The 4th says, "Ah, my stone blunts your scissors, I'm afraid." The 10th Doctor says to that, "Oh, you were going to do paper. You changed your mind." The 4th says, "Or your memory's not what it used to be. Good luck, Doctor."
Yeah, that was so
classic.
lovely.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yes.
All right. So what's your rating?
The only reason it's not getting 10 out of 10 is because I couldn't watch these two actors interact together. And I realize there's practical reasons why.
Yeah.
But I'm giving it 9 out of 10 old school sonic screwdrivers.
Yeah. So I am exactly right there with you. I would love to give this a 10, but again, it's an audio. So, it's, I would love to see this animated, if nothing else.
Oh yes, that would be so good.
If we can't if we can't do this filmed,
yeah,
at least animate it. Somebody, please.
That's a great idea. Yes.
So
absolutely.
Big Finish, get on that. So I'm right there. I give it 9 out of 10. Unfinished frescoes.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was going to do Sonic Scientific Instruments, but
nice.
Yeah. So
yeah.
All right. So if you enjoyed this story, why don't we reverse the polarity of the neutron flow?
Ooh, good.
Back to 1973 with Planet of the Daleks.
Okay.
This is the 4th serial from season 10 in 1973, written by Dalek creator Terry Nation. And this is one that I kind of mentioned very early on when we were doing trivia. The TARDIS materializes in a hostile jungle on the planet Spyridon in the 26th century. So this story is one of the stories set in the Second Dalek War that gets referenced in Out of Time.
Okay.
So that's the big connection here, obviously, and also with the Daleks. So in this one, it's a Third Doctor story. So we have Jo Grant setting out alone to find help for the Third Doctor, who has fallen into a coma. She meets a party of Thals from Skaro and hides aboard their crashed spaceship while they go to the Doctor's aid. After he recovers, the Doctor learns of their mission to destroy a party of Daleks sent to discover the native Spyridon's secret of invisibility. Another Thal spaceship crash lands in the jungle, and the survivors bring news that somewhere on Spyridon is an army of 10,000 Daleks. Meanwhile, Jo Grant visits a friendly Spyridon named Wester, who cures a deadly fungal disease that she contracted. The Dalek section leader develops a colony of bacteria which, when released, will wipe out all organic life on Spyridon. All that remains is to immunize the Daleks and the Spyridon slave workers from its effects. Wester arrives at the Thal camp and tells them about the bacteria. The group devises a plan to infiltrate the base by disguising themselves as Spyridons. There, Wester realizes that the Daleks' preparations are incomplete. He ends up opening a bacteria chamber, which kills him instantly. The control room goes into automatic lockdown, foiling the Daleks' plans for the bacteria. So, in the meantime, the Dalek Supreme, or Supreme Dalek, take your pick, a member of the Dalek Supreme Council arrives to oversee the final stages of the operation, and he ends up exterminating the Dalek section leader for his incompetence. Jo and Letep, a member of the Thal task force, arrive at a cooling chamber and use bombs to destroy 2 squads of Daleks before rejoining the group. Molten Ice rushes out to flood the chamber, freezing the Dalek army. The group escapes over a ramp that leads to the surface, while the rest of the Daleks abandon the base, which fills with molten ice. The group goes to the Dalek Supreme spacecraft, where the Third Doctor asks the Thal task force not to glorify what happened, not to make war sound like an adventure, because the Thals were peaceful people, and he doesn't want that to change. The Thal task force agrees to this, leaves for Skaro and the spacecraft. The Doctor and Jo run back to the TARDIS, pursued by the Dalek Supreme and the other Daleks, and dematerialize just as the Daleks open fire. Now, aboard the TARDIS, the Doctor switches through images of the galaxies on the scanner screen to find Skaro. He shows it to Jo and tells her there are many hundreds of other worlds to see, but she puts an image of Earth on the screen, saying that that's the only world she wants to see right now. The Doctor understands, and he sets the controls for Earth. The end.
Very nice.
So a nice little one from the Jon Pertwee era. And so if you want to learn more about the Second Dalek War, check out this story.
Good. Very nice.
All right. So we have 2 listener feedbacks this time. We get the return of Hannah Scarappa and Holly Mack writing about our story we discussed just now, Out of Time. So, Jesse, do you want to take one while I take the other?
Absolutely. Which one you want?
Take your pick. Dealer's choice.
I'll do Hannah because I've got it up. Greetings, Charles and Jesse.
Hi, Hannah.
Hannah. I thought I'd take the time to write in about Out of Time Trilogy's first installment. I'll begin by saying that I think it's a lovely romp with both David Tennant and Tom Baker giving it their all. I agree. Apart from the wonderful banter, I thought that the gallery's setting was quite interesting as a gateway between different areas of time. It's no wonder why the Daleks wanted to capture it for themselves.
See, it was a good plan.
It was. There were many other aspects of the story that I liked, but I'll keep it short for the sake of time. I see what you did there.
Yep.
The discussion of morality between the 2 incarnations was fascinating, with the 4th Doctor having been through the events of Genesis of the Daleks not too long before the story, and the 10th having memories of the Time War.
Mm-hmm.
I found the resolution to be clever, but of course, this story is all I'll be able to think about whenever I watch that scene at the end of the world.
Yep.
Ooh, good point.
Yeah, because now you can just picture the Daleks dying.
Yes.
Getting roasted.
I look forward to hearing the other 2 stories with Peter Davison and Colin Baker, and the classic companion crossover box set after that. I'm glad that David Tennant is keeping himself busy in lockdown. I'll wrap it up here. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to future discussions. I am inquisitive about hearing Jesse's verdict, pardon the puns, in this series of episodes coming out this February.
I see what
Best
you did there.
regards, Hannah. Yes.
Yeah, you wouldn't be referring to a certain trial we're going to be talking about in February, are you, Hannah?
I think it might be, yes.
Yeah, thanks for writing in, Hannah. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Always lovely to hear from you. And writing in, of course, as well as the wonderful Holly Mack writing in. And I want to give Holly a special props credit because she kind of recommended me for a different podcast, Nick's podcast, the Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast that he does with Zan and Rachel Friend. And she recommended me for a future discussion. And so I want to thank her for that publicly.
Oh, that's nice.
So,
can you share what movie you're going to discuss yet?
I don't know if I can because I don't know if Nick wants me to. So I don't want to spoil it. I don't know if it's my place to spoil that. So I'm going to, out of respect for him, I mean, he may want me to, but I don't know. So I don't want to ruin it. But just stay tuned, everybody. So let's just say we just talked Star Wars and we talked Empire Strikes Back. Shouldn't be too hard to figure out what happens next. All right.
Yeah.
I'll just use that right there. Okay, so Holly writes in and says, "Hey, Charles and Jesse." Hey, Holly. I have to say I really enjoyed this audio adventure. It was nice to have the 10th and 4th Doctors team up again. Love how the 10th got a little miffed when the 4th Doctor called him reckless. I was chuckling at the scissors, paper, stone the 4th Doctor used to overrule 10 going into the cathedral. Let's just put it this way. They know they have a tell and not really clean plan as to what they're going to do. Chuckled at 10 and his floor is lava reference. That was pretty funny. Hey, Daleks, the floor is lava.
Yes, that was great.
Yeah. That's new with the Daleks being able to do body duplication. Plus, we're seeing the Time Lord victorious in the 10th Doctor. Liking how this is tying together with the other series and stories. Looking forward to the next 2 in this series when they come out. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
Appreciate your insight.
Yes, and so glad. Thanks to both of you for writing in about Out of Time. You know, when we do Big Finish audios, I never know if anybody's going to write in for those. So I really
Yeah, exactly.
appreciate the both of you took the time to do that. All right. So if you want to be like Hannah and Holly, and please do, write to us, nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywheresmg for Southgate Media Group at thegmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter at nextstopsmg, Facebook, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who Podcast, or Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere Podcast. Jesse, where can they reach you?
Before we get to that, I did want to we don't often get new reviews on iTunes, which
Right.
is something that makes me sad. But you thought we weren't going to hear from David K. Proctor. But
I was hoping we would.
David did go onto iTunes and posted a review for the podcast. Charles
Very
and
nice
Jesse,
review, by the way.
Yes, it is. I was going to read it
Thank
very
you, David.
quickly. Charles and Jesse do an awesome job looking at Doctor Who and exploring the ins and outs of an intricate entertainment that it really is well above what is normally called a TV show. It is an institution. They not only are the best source of current Doctor Who, but thoroughly explore the classic Who as well. There's nothing that makes great entertainment better than discussing with friends. This is what this show is, friends discussing awesome entertainment. It's good for lifelong friends to reminisce and to help new fans get a grip on this train that has been running hard since 1963. I've explored several other Doctor Who podcasts, and Charles and Jesse and the myriad guest hosts they bring are truly the best. So thank you, Dave, as always.
Thank you,
and
Dave.
Please, listeners, go ahead, Charles.
Well, I was just going to say thanks for that, and glad you kind of placed us above other Doctor Who podcasts. Really appreciate that. So hopefully
Yes.
we'll keep being worthy of your praise. And your check is in the mail, sir. So.
Absolutely. And so if any of you else want to go and say a few nice words about us on iTunes, we would appreciate it. Now,
Yeah.
as far as hearing from me, I am still doing Set Lessing Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast. I've got a lot of fun things coming up that I'm looking forward to discussing. I shared with Charles before we recorded. So I've got a big guest coming up that I'm going to kind of keep as a surprise.
It's pretty big.
Yeah. We coming up, Charles and I are going to talk WandaVision.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about talking that on the Fandom Zone with Charles and Nick. And speaking of Nick,
Yes.
I do think I can tell this. I am scheduled to talk Casablanca next
Casablanca.
week.
Yeah.
Yes, on their Oscars, the Gold Standard podcast, and I am really looking forward to. By far, Casablanca is my favorite film.
Yep.
And so I am looking forward to talking to that about them.
I did tell Nick that if for whatever reason you're not able to make that podcast,
yes,
that I would be more than happy to fill in.
Yeah,
in your absence.
I did. I mean, the moment I heard this, I
Yes.
shot an email. Like they had not even recorded a first episode, and I said, "If you're ever going to use guest host,
Yeah.
let me put my name down for Casablanca."
Because I requested Casablanca thinking it was okay, and
Yeah.
he's like, "No, Jesse already claimed that," and I'm like, "Damn it!"
Yes. It is just a classic film that I'm really looking forward to talking to. That is a fun podcast, and I always enjoy their take. You can find me on social media at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Charles, how about you?
Well, obviously you can find me at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagrams, Facebook, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're talking about all the stuff we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere. So, Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish audios, obviously, and more. And then, well, hey, let's see, the other podcasts they do for Southgate Media Group, including, certain Phantom Zone podcasts. Like Jesse said, we're going to be talking WandaVision this coming Sunday, as it turns out. So, apparently they're going to be releasing the very first 2 episodes at once. So that should be really interesting to talk about. And there's been some advanced reviews on that already that have apparently been very encouraging. So I'm very glad for that. I think it's going to be a very innovative show. I think it's going to be something that's, definitely not the typical Marvel Cinematic Universe show. It's going to be a little more challenging, and I love that.
Yeah, I do
So I think it's going to make for a great discussion. So I hope everybody comes and listens to Jesse and myself and Nick as we talk WandaVision. I think that's going to be a blast. So if you enjoy us here, come on over and check us out there. Also, of course, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where all three of us talk Titans and Doom Patrol. But like you guys know, it's on hiatus. And as we're waiting for season 3 of both shows to arrive on HBO Max, apparently they're both filming. So fingers crossed we'll get those this year. And then Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast, they do with Zan Sprouse, the delightful Zan Sprouse, whom you've heard obviously here on Next Stop Everywhere, and will again very, very soon as we talk Twin Peaks, David Lynch, and all whatever pop culture nonsense pops into our little brains as we record this, I think tomorrow, right? That we're going to be talking the David Lynch film from 1984, Dune, the original version that he did that adapts the Frank Herbert novel, and really looking forward to that. Hope everybody tunes in because this is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and we got tired of waiting for the Denis Villeneuve's version because that keeps getting delayed by the studio Warner Brothers because of COVID and whatnot. So we decided, well, hey, we're going to do our own Dune review, and I think it should be good. So please check that out. And then, last but certainly not least, Drunk Cinema, which is our Zan and my little side gig project where we talk various movies that we love. We've talked a few movies from the 80s so far. We're going to talk other periods, but for right now, we're kind of stuck in an 80s mode. We've talked Batman from 1989. We've talked Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And over Christmas, we talked Die Hard, the ultimate Christmas movie. So hopefully you've enjoyed those. If not, give those a listen. We would definitely appreciate that. And tell your friends about us. Because since we're still a young little podcast trying to make our way in the world, we definitely appreciate any kind of support in that regard. And then coming up here in a couple weeks, we're going to be discussing another 80s film, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, Across the Eighth Dimension, which is a fun cult classic movie starring Peter Weller, Christopher Lloyd's in that, Jeff Goldblum, Dan Hedaya, Ellen Barkin. So if you've never seen The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, I definitely recommend it. It's a very cheesy 80s movie, but it embraces the cheese. And as a result, it's such a fun classic. Highly recommended.
It really is, yes.
So lots of great stuff, and fans of classic Doctor Who would definitely appreciate it, in my opinion.
I agree,
especially for some of the special effects involved. So that's what's going on with me. As for next time, right here on Next Stop Everywhere, episode 215, where Jesse and I are going to talk The Faceless Ones.
Ooh.
And this is a story that was recently completed this past year through animation. So hopefully Jesse has access to this. But if not, we may have to do some rescheduling. But hopefully he does. And this is from the Patrick Troughton era. This is where we say goodbye to the last of the first Doctor companions, Ben and Polly, and we kind of set the stage for the next story's arrival of Victoria Waterfield. But Jamie's in it. This is a big second Doctor and Jamie story, so I hope everybody tunes in for this. If you have the Faceless Ones, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this when we do our feedback section. But I thought this is a really interesting one for them to animate, and if nothing else, it's great to get another of the Patrick Troughton era completed once again.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because so much of the second Doctors were lost. So I remember watching, I think I ended up watching this when it was BBC showed it. So I remember seeing it. So I will have to find a way to watch it to remind me now that because at the time I was just watching it for fun.
Right.
So, but I've already checked, and there's a couple ways I can get this. So,
okay, good. All right, good.
Yeah.
All right, just want to make sure.
Yes.
All right, because it's like I think half of the story was salvaged. I think there's 2 episodes out of the 6. It's a 6-parter, so roughly total 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Yes.
But I think at least 2 episodes are still surviving. The rest are animated. But definitely worth it. There's also an option, if you have the Blu-ray or the DVD, that you can watch either all of them animated or I like to do a mix because I like to watch the surviving episodes.
Yeah.
But it's up to you however you want to watch it. It's a great story, and I hope everybody checks it out. Okay, so everybody, Thanks again for listening. Jesse, thank you as always. Great to hear from you. And everybody come on back next time, episode 215, The Faceless Ones, as we get back to watching some classic Doctor Who right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.